The dust should have settled after that nuclear confrontation. Vanessa should have learned her lesson, packed her stuff, and slithered away to lick her wounds. But my sister? She never did know when to quit. And what started as a simple case of theft and family drama was about to explode into something nobody saw coming, least of all me. The next morning, I woke up to my phone blowing up. Not with messages from friends or notifications from social media. I'm talking 12 missed calls from Dad, 8 from Mom, and a string of texts that made my blood run cold even before I'd fully opened my eyes. Maya, call me immediately. Your sister is missing. The credit card companies are calling. This is bad. We need to talk now. I sat up so fast my head spun. Missing? What the hell did that mean, missing? I'd heard Vanessa crying in her room until past midnight. I stumbled out of bed, threw on yesterday's jeans and a hoodie, and practically ran downstairs. Mom and Dad were in the kitchen, and they looked like they'd aged a decade overnight. Dad was on the phone, his voice tight and controlled in that way that meant he was barely holding it together. Mom was sitting at the table with her head in her hands, still in her bathrobe at 9 in the morning, something I'd never seen her do on a weekday. She's up, Mom said when she saw me, her voice hollow. Dan, she's here. Dad ended his call and turned to face me. Maya, honey, when was the last time you saw your sister? Last night, I heard her in her room crying. Why? What's going on? She's gone, Mom said. And there was this weird flatness to her voice that scared me more than if she'd been yelling. Her room is cleaned out. Clothes, laptop, everything. She left a note. Dad handed me a piece of notebook paper torn raggedly at the edge. Vanessa's loopy handwriting covered about half the page. Since nobody in this family gives a damn about me anyway, I'm leaving. Don't bother looking for me. I'll figure it out on my own like I always do. Maybe without you all judging me 24/7, I can actually be happy. Tell Maya I hope her perfect little life works out exactly how she planned it. Some of us aren't lucky enough to be the favorite. I read it twice, trying to process. This is ridiculous. She's just being dramatic. She probably went to stay with one of her friends. We called everyone. Brittany, Jessica, that girl Madison she used to hang out with. Nobody's seen her. Her car's gone. Her phone is going straight to voicemail. Okay, but she's 21 years old, I pointed out. She's an adult. She can leave if she wants. Why are we freaking out? Mom finally looked up at me, and her eyes were red and puffy. Because the credit card company started calling at 7 this morning. Vanessa didn't just open a few cards, Maya. She opened 17. 17 different credit cards, most of them using our information, some using yours. The total debt is over $60,000. The room tilted sideways. 60 what? $63,412, Dad said precisely, like the exact number mattered. And that's just what we know about so far. There might be more. The fraud departments are still investigating. I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. How is that even possible? How did she get approved for that much credit? She lied, Dad said simply. Inflated income figures, used our credit histories, forged signatures. She's been doing it for months, apparently.
We just never noticed because she had all the statements going to a P.O. box. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to know the really funny part? She did all this while working part-time at a phone case kiosk making minimum wage. The banks should have caught it, but they didn't, and now we're all on the hook. Not Maya, Mom said quickly. We talked to a lawyer already this morning. Since Maya's a minor, I turned 18 last month, I reminded her. Right, but most of the fraudulent activity happened before that, so there's legal protection. But for us, she gestured between herself and Dad, we're looking at either paying off the debt or declaring bankruptcy. Those are basically our options. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. Can't you just report it as fraud? She stole your identity. That's illegal. We can, Dad said slowly. And if we do, Vanessa goes to jail, like actual prison. This isn't shoplifting or a DUI. This is felony identity theft, credit card fraud, and God knows what else. The prosecutor we spoke to said she's looking at 5 to 10 years if they charge her with everything. The weight of that hung in the air like smoke from a fire we couldn't put out. My sister, in prison, for a decade, because she wanted to go shopping? But she's still our daughter, Mom whispered. How can we send our own child to prison? I wanted to point out that Vanessa had made her choices, that she'd known what she was doing was wrong, that she'd stolen from her own family without a second thought. But looking at Mom's devastated face, at Dad's barely contained panic, I kept my mouth shut. This wasn't about right and wrong anymore. This was about a family imploding in real time. So what are you going to do? I asked instead. We don't know, Dad admitted. If we report the fraud, Vanessa's life is over. If we don't, ours might be. We've worked 30 years to build our credit, to save for retirement, to have something to leave you girls. And now, he gestured helplessly at nothing. It could all be gone. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop being such a narc. Tell Mom and Dad to chill. I'll pay them back eventually. I showed them the message. Dad's jaw clenched so hard I could hear his teeth grinding. Eventually, he repeated. Your sister thinks she can just waltz back whenever she feels like it, and this will all blow over. She has no idea how serious this is. Forward that to me, Mom said. The lawyer said any communication from her could be important. Over the next week, things went from bad to catastrophic. The credit card companies weren't messing around. They wanted their money, and they wanted it now. Mom and Dad had to hire a lawyer, which cost money they didn't have. They had to freeze their credit, which meant Dad couldn't get the loan he needed to finish the basement renovation he'd already started. They had to notify the police, which meant Vanessa was now officially wanted for questioning. And through it all, my sister kept sending these infuriating little text messages. You guys are so dramatic, LOL. It's just money. You'll figure it out.
Why is everyone acting like I killed someone? Each message made me angrier than the last. Because this wasn't just about money. It was about trust, about family, about basic human decency. And Vanessa still didn't get it. Or worse, she got it and didn't care. School became a nightmare. Somehow, word got out, probably through Madison, who had a big mouth and an even bigger social media following, that my sister had stolen from our family and run away. Suddenly, I was that girl with the psycho sister. People either avoided me completely or asked invasive questions disguised as concern. Oh my God, Maya, I heard about Vanessa. Are you okay? Like, was she always crazy or did something happen? The worst part? I couldn't even defend her because they were right. She was acting crazy. She'd committed multiple felonies, destroyed our family's financial stability, and bailed without a shred of remorse. What was I supposed to say? Actually, she's always been selfish and entitled. This is just the logical conclusion of 18 years of getting away with everything. My only refuge was work. I picked up every shift I could at the diner, partly because I needed the distraction and partly because I had this gnawing fear that Mom and Dad wouldn't be able to help with college anymore. That $17,670 was safe, sure, but what about years 2 through 4? What about living expenses? What if Vanessa's mess ended up torpedoing my future after all? It was during a particularly brutal Saturday lunch rush. We're talking every table full, tickets backed up to Sunday, Karen in booth 7 sending back her eggs for the 3rd time, that things took another turn. I was refilling coffee for a table of truckers when I felt my phone buzzing insistently in my apron pocket. I ignored it. We weren't allowed to check our phones during shifts, but it kept buzzing and buzzing. Finally, during a rare lull, I ducked into the back and checked. 15 missed calls, all from Dad. My stomach dropped. I called him back immediately. Maya? His voice was strange. Tight and angry, but also excited. You need to come home, now. Tell your boss it's a family emergency. Dad, what? Now, Maya, this can't wait. I'd never heard that tone from him before.
I told Sheila I had to leave. She was pissed, but covered for me, and drove home going definitely faster than I should have. When I pulled up, there was an unfamiliar car in the driveway. A silver Mercedes with dealer plates. And standing on our front porch, looking significantly less confident than she had a week ago, was Vanessa. She had lost weight. Her hair was greasy and pulled back in a messy bun. She was wearing the same clothes she'd presumably left in, yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt that had definitely seen better days. The designer bags and fancy outfits were nowhere in sight. She looked, in a word, rough. "Maya?" she said when she saw me, and her voice cracked. "Look, I know you're mad, but—" "Inside," Dad barked from the doorway. "Both of you. Now!" We filed in like kids being called to the principal's office. Mom was in the living room with a man I didn't recognize. Older, maybe 60, in an expensive suit that screamed lawyer or detective. Vanessa kept shooting nervous glances at him. "Maya, this is Detective Morse with the Financial Crimes Unit. He's been investigating your sister's activities." "Miss Morrison," Detective Morse nodded at me, "I understand you were a victim of your sister's identity theft as well." "Technically, yeah, but she didn't actually steal anything from me because I'd already moved my money." "Why was he here? Why was Vanessa back?" "Right, smart thinking on your part." He turned to Vanessa. "Why is everyone acting like I killed someone?" Each message made me angrier than the last, because this wasn't just about money, it was about trust, about family, about basic human decency. And Vanessa still didn't get it. Or worse, she got it and didn't care. School became a nightmare. Somehow, word got out, probably through Madison, who had a big mouth and an even bigger social media following, that my sister had stolen from our family and run away. Suddenly, I was that girl with the psycho sister. People either avoided me completely or asked invasive questions disguised as concern. "Oh my God, Maya, I heard about Vanessa. Are you okay? Like, was she always crazy or did something happen?" The worst part, I couldn't even defend her because they were right. She was acting crazy. She'd committed multiple felonies, destroyed our family's financial stability, and bailed without a shred of remorse. What was I supposed to say? Actually, she's always been selfish and entitled. This is just the logical conclusion of 18 years of getting away with everything. My only refuge was work. I picked up every shift I could at the diner, partly because I needed the distraction, and partly because I had this gnawing fear that Mom and Dad wouldn't be able to help with college anymore. That $17,670 was safe, sure, but what about years 2 through 4? What about living expenses? What if Vanessa's mess ended up torpedoing my future after all? It was during a particularly brutal Saturday lunch rush. We're talking every table full, tickets backed up to Sunday, Karen in booth 7 sending back her eggs for the 3rd time, that things took another turn. I was refilling coffee for a table of truckers when I felt my phone buzzing insistently in my apron pocket. I ignored it. We weren't allowed to check our phones during shifts, but it kept buzzing and buzzing. Finally, during a rare lull, I ducked into the back and checked. 15 missed calls, all from Dad. My stomach dropped. I called him back immediately. "Maya." His voice was strange, tight and angry, but also excited. "You need to come home now. Tell your boss it's a family emergency." "Dad, what?" "Now, Maya, this can't wait." I'd never heard that tone from him before. I told Sheila I had to leave. She was pissed, but covered for me, and drove home going definitely faster than I should have. When I pulled up, there was an unfamiliar car in the driveway, a silver Mercedes with dealer plates. And standing on our front porch, looking significantly less confident than she had a week ago, was Vanessa. She lost weight. Her hair was greasy and pulled back in a messy bun. She was wearing the same clothes she'd presumably left in, yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt that had definitely seen better days. The designer bags and fancy outfits were nowhere to be seen. She looked, in a word,
rough. "Maya," she said when she saw me, and her voice cracked. "Look, I know you're mad, but—" "Inside," Dad barked from the doorway. "Both of you, now." We filed in like kids being called to the principal's office. Mom was in the living room with a man I didn't recognize. Older, maybe 60, in an expensive suit that screamed lawyer or detective. Vanessa kept shooting nervous glances at him. "Maya, this is Detective Morris with the Financial Crimes Unit. He's been investigating your sister's activities. Miss Morrison, the elder Miss Morrison, has come forward with some information. Go ahead, Vanessa. Tell them what you told me." Vanessa looked like she'd rather die, but she took a shaky breath. "I wasn't working alone."
The room went silent except for the ticking of the ancient clock above the fireplace. What? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "I mean, the idea was mine," Vanessa said quickly, like that made it better. "But I didn't know how to do all the technical stuff, opening the accounts, forging the documents, hiding the trail. I had help." "From who?" Dad demanded. "His name is Derek Chen. We met at a club about 6 months ago. He seemed really into me, you know? Bought me drinks, took me to nice restaurants, made me feel special. He said he worked in finance, said he could help me maximize my potential. I thought he was just being nice, but then he started asking about my family, about our finances, about Maya's college fund. Oh God, this was so much worse than I'd thought. He said it would be easy," Vanessa continued, and now she was crying. "He said we'd open a few credit cards, buy some stuff, flip it online, make a profit. He made it sound like no big deal, like everyone does it. He said we'd pay everything back before anyone noticed, and I'd get a cut of the profits, enough to finally move out, get my own place, start over." "Let me guess," I said, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "The profits never materialized?" "He disappeared," Vanessa sobbed. "After the shopping spree, he was supposed to sell everything, but then he just vanished. Blocked my number, deleted his social media, gone. I went to his apartment and there was a different family living there. They said they'd been there for months. It was like he never existed." Detective Morris pulled out a tablet and showed us a photo. "Is this the man you knew as Derek Chen?" Vanessa nodded miserably. "His real name is Marcus Reynolds. He's a con artist. Been running variations of this scam for about 5 years across 7 states. He targets young women, usually from upper middle-class families, gains their trust, and then uses them to commit identity theft and credit card fraud. By the time anyone realizes what's happening, he's gone and the women are left holding the bag. Sometimes, literally." "So this wasn't Vanessa's idea?" Mom asked, and I could hear the hope in her voice, the desperate need for her daughter to be a victim instead of a villain. "Oh, she's still culpable," Detective Morris said flatly. "She knew what she was doing was illegal. She provided the personal information, signed the documents, made the purchases. But Reynolds is the mastermind. He's the one we really want. And your daughter has agreed to cooperate with our investigation in exchange for a reduced sentence." "Reduced to what?" Dad asked. "Probation, most likely. Community service, restitution payments. She'll have a record, but she won't do prison time if she testifies against Reynolds. We've been trying to catch this guy for years. Vanessa's testimony, combined with what little evidence she has, might finally be enough." I looked at my sister, really looked at her. She wasn't the confident, smug girl who'd shown off her shopping haul a week ago. She looked broken, scared, young in a way I'd never seen her before. And despite everything, despite all the anger and hurt and betrayal, I felt something I didn't expect: pity. "Why didn't you just tell us?" I asked her. "When you realized it was a scam, why didn't you come to Mom and Dad?" "Because I'm an idiot. Because I was embarrassed. Because I thought I could fix it myself. Because—" She looked at me and her eyes were so sad. "Because I've spent my whole life being the screw-up, and I couldn't stand the thought of proving everyone right again." "So instead you ran away and let us think you were just a selfish thief?" Dad's voice was hard. I know how it looks, but I was scared, Dad. Marcus said if I told anyone, he'd make sure I went down for everything. He said he had recordings of me admitting to fraud. He said he would ruin my life." She wiped her nose on her sleeve. "I didn't know what else to do." Detective Morris cleared his throat. "For what it's worth,
Reynolds has used that line on every single victim. The recordings don't exist. It's just another manipulation tactic.
But by the time his victims figure that out, it's usually too late. What happens now? Mom asked. Now, Vanessa works with us to build a case against Reynolds. She'll need to provide testimony, documentation, anything she has that can help us locate and arrest him. In the meantime, regarding the credit card debt, because Vanessa was coerced and defrauded by Reynolds, there's a chance the credit card companies will write off at least some of it, especially if we can prove Reynolds was the primary beneficiary. How much of it? Dad asked, and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. Hard to say. Maybe 30%, maybe 60%. Depends on what we can prove and how cooperative the companies are feeling. But it's better than being on the hook for the full $63,000. That was something, at least. Not great, but better than bankruptcy. Over the next few hours, Detective Morris took Vanessa's statement. She told him everything. How she met Marcus, the things he'd promised, the lies he'd told, how he'd made her feel special and seen in a way she hadn't felt in years, how he'd slowly isolated her from her friends and family, made her dependent on his approval, how the credit card scheme had started small and escalated so fast she couldn't keep track of it all. Listening to her, I realized something that made me uncomfortable. My sister hadn't just been greedy. She'd been lonely, desperate for validation, easy prey for someone who knew exactly what buttons to push. It didn't excuse what she'd done. She'd still made choices, still hurt people, still committed crimes, but it added context I hadn't considered before. When Detective Morris finally left, promising to be in touch, the four of us sat in the living room in awkward silence. Nobody seemed to know what to say. Finally, Vanessa spoke. I know sorry doesn't cut it. I know I've destroyed everything. But for what it's worth, she looked at me. Maya, I never meant to hurt you. When Marcus told me your account only had $50 in it, I actually felt relieved. I thought maybe you'd moved the money, that you'd been smart enough not to trust me. And I was right. You were smart. You're always smart. And I'm always the screw-up who makes everything worse. Vanessa, Mom started, but my sister held up a hand. No, let me finish. Maya, you've worked your ass off for everything you have. You saved every penny, planned every step, and you did it all while dealing with me as a sister, which, let's be real, is like playing life on hard mode. And instead of being proud of you or trying to learn from you, I resented you, because it's easier to be jealous than to actually change. She took a shaky breath. I stole from you, or tried to, because some part of me wanted to prove that you weren't better than me, that you were just lucky. But you're not lucky. You're smart and hardworking and everything I'm not. And I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to accept her apology, to hug her and tell her it was okay and we'd figure it out together. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt too many times, wasn't ready to let my guard down. I appreciate the apology, I said carefully. But Vanessa, this isn't the first time you've screwed me over. It's just the biggest. And I don't know if sorry is enough anymore. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I get it, I do. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to know that I'm going to fix this. However long it takes, whatever I have to do, I'm going to pay back every cent I can, and I'm going to testify against Marcus, and I'm going to actually get my life together. Not for you, not for Mom and Dad, but for me, because I'm tired of being this person. Good, Dad said, speaking for the first time in a while. Because Vanessa, you're still moving out at the end of the month. What you've told us today changes some things, but it doesn't change everything. You need to stand on your own 2 feet.
No more free rides. I know. I'm staying with Aunt Carol in Detroit. She said I can live there if I get a full-time job and pay rent. And she's making me go to therapy. Therapy's a good idea, Mom said quietly. For all of us, honestly. That became the new normal over the next few weeks. Vanessa moved out, started working 2 jobs, one at a grocery store, one at a call center, and met with Detective Morris regularly to build the case against Marcus Reynolds. Mom and Dad met with the credit card companies, lawyers, and financial advisors to try to salvage what they could of their finances. And me? I tried to focus on school, on graduation, on the future that was still waiting for me in East Lansing. But it was hard. The whole thing had taken a toll I hadn't expected. I started having nightmares, not about Vanessa stealing from me, but about being trapped in a burning house with my family and not being able to save them. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, heart pounding, and lie there wondering if I should feel guilty for protecting myself, for not being the one who got hurt, for not somehow preventing this whole mess. Survivor's guilt, my school counselor called it when I finally broke down and talked to her. You protected yourself, which was smart. But now you're feeling guilty because your family is suffering and you're not. That's normal, Maya. But it's also irrational. You didn't cause this. Vanessa made her choices. A con artist made his choices. You just happened to be smart enough not to become a victim. But what if I'd warned them? I asked. What if I'd told Mom and Dad when Vanessa started asking weird questions about my account? Then maybe this wouldn't have happened. Or maybe it would have happened differently. Or maybe Vanessa and Marcus would have found another way. You can't Monday morning quarterback your own life, Maya. All you can do is make the best decisions you can with the information you have at the time. And you did. It helped, talking to her. It helped even more when I finally let myself admit that I was angry. Not just at Vanessa, though God knows I was still mad at her, but at the whole situation. At Marcus Reynolds for being a predatory piece of garbage. At my parents for being so focused on Vanessa's drama that they'd never really seen me. At the universe for making me choose between protecting myself and protecting my family. Graduation came and went in a blur. I gave a speech as valedictorian, something generic about futures and possibilities and the journey ahead, and accepted my diploma while my parents cheered from the audience. Vanessa didn't come. She sent a card with a $20 bill inside and a note that said, "From my first paycheck. I know it's not much, but it's a start. Proud of you, sis." I stuck the 20 in my wallet and the card in my desk drawer. Baby steps, I guess. The real fireworks came in late June. I was helping Dad pack up some boxes for storage. They were downsizing. Selling the house to pay off some of the debt, when Detective Morris called. Marcus Reynolds had been arrested in Nevada. They'd tracked him through the paper trail Vanessa had provided, combined with testimony from 3 other victims in different states. He was looking at serious prison time, multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, racketeering, you name it. And the credit card companies? Dad asked. Most of them have agreed to write off the debt entirely given the circumstances. You'll still be on the hook for about $12,000, but that's a hell of a lot better than $63,000. $12,000. Still a huge amount, but manageable. Not bankruptcy-inducing, not life-destroying, just hard. What about Vanessa? I asked, grabbing the phone from Dad. What happens to her? Miss Morrison will be formally charged with credit card fraud and identity theft, but given her cooperation and the coercion involved, the DA is recommending probation, community service, and restitution. No jail time. Her record can potentially be expunged after 5 years if she complies with all the terms. A second chance. After everything she'd done, my sister was getting a second chance. Part of me thought it was too easy, but another part, the part that had listened to her apology, that had seen her working 2 jobs and going to therapy and actually trying, thought maybe it was fair. Maybe people deserved the chance to be better than their worst moment. The case against Marcus made local news. Not huge headlines, but enough that people at school and work started treating me differently. Not like the girl with the psycho sister anymore, but like the girl whose sister helped take down a major con artist. It was weird, being seen as a victim and a hero at the same time. I didn't love the attention, but it was better than the pity. In late July, about a week before I was supposed to leave for Michigan State, Vanessa asked if we could meet for coffee. I almost said no. I wasn't sure I was ready, but something made me say yes. Maybe curiosity, maybe hope, maybe just exhaustion with holding on to anger. We met at a Starbucks halfway between home and Detroit. She looked different, thinner still, but healthier somehow. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup, wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt. She looked like a regular person, instead of the Instagram perfect version of herself she'd always projected. "Thanks for coming," she said when I sat down across from her. "I wasn't sure you would." I wasn't sure I would either. We sat in awkward silence for a moment, then both started talking at the same time. We laughed, a real laugh, not a forced one, and it broke some of the tension. "You first," I said. "I wanted to tell you in person. I'm moving to Chicago. There's a program there for people rebuilding after financial fraud. Helps you get job training, housing assistance, therapy. My probation officer approved it. I leave next month." That's good, Vanessa." "Really?" "Yeah." She twisted her cup in her hands. "I also wanted to give you this." She pushed an envelope across the table. "It's not much, just what I've managed to save from my paychecks after paying rent and making payments to the credit card companies. But it's yours, for college, or whatever you need." I opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $840. Not even close to what she'd tried to steal. Not even a fraction. But it was something. It was effort. It was proof that she meant what she'd said about making things right. "Vanessa, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Not because you need it. You're going to be fine, Maya. You're going to kick ass at Michigan State and probably end up running some Fortune 500 company before you're 30. But I need to do this. For me, to prove to myself that I can be better." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw someone I'd never seen before. Someone tired and scared and trying. Not the golden child, not the screw-up, just a person who'd made terrible choices and was now facing the consequences while trying to build something better from the wreckage. "Okay," I said, folding the check and putting it in my pocket. "Thank you." "I'm proud of you, you know," Vanessa said quietly. "I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. You're amazing, Maya, and I'm sorry it took me so long and such a huge mess to realize it." We talked for another hour.
Not about the fraud or Marcus or any of the heavy stuff. Just sister stuff. Movies we liked. Memories from childhood. Hopes for the future. It wasn't a miracle reconciliation. We weren't suddenly best friends, but it was a start. A tiny, fragile start, but a start nonetheless. When we hugged goodbye in the parking lot, Vanessa whispered, "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope someday you can at least not hate me." "I never hated you," I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. I was angry and hurt and disappointed, but I never hated you. That's more than I deserve. Maybe, but it's what you're getting. Driving home, I thought about karma, about consequences and second chances, about how sometimes the revenge you plan isn't nearly as satisfying as the growth that comes from pain. Vanessa hadn't gotten off easy. She had years of probation ahead of her, thousands of dollars in restitution to pay, a criminal record that would follow her. But she also had a chance to be better. And surprisingly, I found that I wanted that for her. The night before I left for college, Dad knocked on my door. I was surrounded by boxes and suitcases, trying to figure out how to fit my entire life into a Honda Civic. "Need help?" he asked. "Always." We worked in comfortable silence for a while, folding clothes and organizing boxes. Then he said, "I never thanked you properly. for being smart enough to protect yourself. If you hadn't moved that money, we'd be in even worse shape than we are now. You probably saved us from bankruptcy. Dad, I didn't do it to save anyone. I did it because I didn't trust Vanessa. I know, but the result is the same. You were the only one in this family who saw clearly, who didn't let hope or love or whatever cloud their judgment. That takes strength, kiddo, and I'm proud of you for having it. We finished packing in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now. The kind that didn't need words because everything important had already been said. The next morning, driving away from the only home I'd ever known, I looked back in the rearview mirror once. Mom and Dad were waving from the driveway, getting smaller and smaller as I drove away. No Vanessa, but I hadn't expected her. She was in Detroit, living her own life, fighting her own battles. My phone buzzed at a red light, a text from an unknown number. Kill it at MSU. You've got this. V. I smiled, saved the number, and kept driving toward my future. The story wasn't over for any of us. Vanessa still had years of consequences ahead of her. Mom and Dad still had debt to pay off. And me? I had 4 years of college, a business degree to earn, and a whole life to build. But here's the thing about karma that nobody tells you. It's not always about destruction. Sometimes it's about transformation. My sister tried to destroy me and ended up destroying herself instead. But from those ashes, something new was growing. Something neither of us expected. Something that looked an awful lot like hope. And if you think that's where this story ends, you're wrong again. Because the universe wasn't done teaching us lessons. Not by a long shot. What came next would test everything we thought we knew about family, forgiveness, and what it really means to move forward when the past refuses to let go.